Hello there, Parth Sharma this side, bringing you chess classics in which I'm covering top 15 games played by Vishwanathan Anand. If you're new to this channel, then don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you're already subscribed, then do press the bell icon for future notifications. And if you like my work, then do consider supporting me on Patreon and PayPal. You will find the links in the description because your support is my motivation, which keeps me going. Also, if you want to watch this game, or I should say, if you want to have BGN of this game, you will find that in the description box. So, happy days, isn't it? At number 7 of our list of top 15 games played by Vishwanathan Anand is his game against Garry Kasparov from the 1995 World Chess Championship match, something that Anand doesn't look back with all the pleasure, but he had that silver lining in this championship match, and this was this famous game 9, which he won his first ever World Chess Championship match and his first ever victory in World Chess Championship matches. And it was a big feat for him because even Kasparov wasn't able to win his first World Chess Championship match for very long. It took him 32 games to win that in his first ever World Chess Championship match. You will find the playlist in the right hand corner of the video, and yeah, it was a forgettable match because after this game Kasparov won 4 games of the next 5, and it was a very tough blow to Vishy, but he learned a lot. He took those lessons in the future championship matches, and we will see some of the games also from them, but we may or may not see, let me clarify. But anyway, focus on this game, the famous game 9 of that championship match, where Anand is white and Kasparov is black, and as we all know, the score was tied after 8 games, 4 apiece with all 8 draws. First time in World Chess Championship history, and that there were a series of 8 draws. The first 8 games were drawn, but Anand drew first blood in that match, and it was this famous game 9. So without further ado, let's jump on to this. Anand with white opens with pawn to e4, and Kasparov plays its favorite Sicilian, and we will come to the knight off. But the position transforms after this Opochenski bishop e2 to Sicilian Scheveningen, which was Kasparov's speciality, and he had a very good expertise in playing Scheveningen, one of the best experts in the opening. Anand castle, bishop to e7, normal development. Normally you see this a4, knight to c6, bishop to e3, and this has all been played before the match, and I will tell you when it happened. So Kasparov castle, this is a very well known theory. f4, queen c7, king to h1, rook to e8, and bishop to f3, and this was played in game 24 of Kharkov-Kasparov World Championship match in 1985, the game which Kasparov won and made him world champion as the first time world champion, the youngest ever world champion at that time, and still is. The game that Kasparov won with black pieces, and we are following the same leaf, we are following the same route of that very game up to move 12 up to this point. But in that game, in 24th game, the famous 24th game which Kasparov won and made him the world champion, Kasparov played rook to b8 in that game, and after queen d2, bishop d7, knight b3, b6, Karpov pushed in desperation for a win because he had to win that, and Kasparov only needed a draw to secure the title, or I should say win the title, take the title from Karpov. So Karpov after that played g4 and so on, and he took some initiative, but eventually he ran out of gas, and then Kasparov started to attack and he won that fabulous game which made him the world champion. But here in this game, after bishop to f3, he plays bishop to d7. Okay, still a little bit of reminiscent to that game. Knight to b3, and now Kasparov comes up with this move, knight to a5, which I thought was a bit inaccurate, but possibly his main intention would have been to stop this a5 advancement, to nullify this these two pawns, and to just fix this pawn structure, and black won't have any counter-attacking chances, especially on the queen side. So he plays knight to a5, Anand gleefully accepts, and queen takes a5. Queen to d3 by Anand, and again this is a reminiscent of another game that I would be giving it to you. Rook a to d8, so pretty much normal stuff, and this was the game that Kasparov played with black pieces against Johan van der Wiel, and van der Wiel in that game played queen to d2, and after rook c8, e5, Kasparov got a great initiative after de and fe, and he won a fabulous game there. So it was quite evident that after rook a to d8, Kasparov had this position with him, and also would have had certain plans that how to deal with this position when it occurred against van der Wiel. And Anand would have also have studied this game, so he knew that if this position occurs, there might be a little bit in the position that he can exploit. So Anand comes up with this plan, rook f to d1. So improving on Johan van der Wiel's move of queen d2, so he improves it by himself by playing rook f to d1, and he plays bishop to c6, tried to take the long diagonal, and here Anand takes a good initiative here. He plays pawn to b4, and this forces Kasparov to retreat its queen to c7, but you can see that this pawn is free, but in fact this is a poison pawn. So if queen takes, then actually the queen gets trapped. After rook d to b1, queen a5, and bishop e6, the queen is trapped. And after queen takes b4, if you try to play this rook, well, still the queen is trapped. And if queen a5, the very same story, bishop e6, the queen is trapped. And after rook a to b1, queen a3, then rook b3, and queen is again trapped. So after b4, the pawn cannot be taken. This is a poisoned pawn, which forces Kasparov to backtrack, and he retreats his queen back to c7. But this gives Anand a tempo, and he exploits this tempo very nicely indeed. Plays pawn to b5, and this is tremendous. If this pawn is captured, let's say by a takes b, then Anand will simply recapture the pawn. The bishop has to tucks back to d7, and then knight to a4, threatening bishop here, and that would be the end. So after b5, realizing that knight a4 and bishop b6 are, I would say, terrible threats, so understandably he retreats his bishop back to d7. Anand, again taking advantage of this, plays rook a to b1. So his main idea is to initiate this capture, or else to play take and then bishop b6. And if he, let's say, go a5, then actually this might help because of b6, or even rook b3, doubling on this file, and that will be, I would say, decent chances for white. So Kasparov takes, knight takes, and now there, as you can see, there is triple threat on the pawn on d6. The knight is attacking, queen is attacking, the rook is attacking, and by the way, the knight wasn't sitting very well on c3, because there would have been chances that if pawn takes, then rook here might have created some unpleasant options for white, because the knight on c3 would have been, I would say, very vulnerable. But by playing this, he actually improved the position of this knight, and as we can see, the d6 pawn is threatened, so Kasparov is somewhat forced to take that knight on b5, and now Anand crashes through with queen takes b5. You can see the c2 pawn is free, but again this pawn is poisoned, because if you take the pawn, well, then comes rook d to c1, queen a2 and rook a1, and the queen is again trapped. It has no squares to go. Bye bye queen. So after queen takes b5, he also realizes that a5 and bishop b6 can be devastating threats. So he stops a5 by playing rook to a8, and that's a good move. But now Anand pushes that pawn to c4, and now his intention is to keep attacking on the queen side. Normally you see players attacking on the king side, but in this position he's attacking on the queen side, because these bishops are looking tremendous at the queen side, and Kasparov doesn't have any counterplay whatsoever. He tries to create one, plays pawn to e5, and now Anand comes up with this brilliant idea, bishop to b6, making sure that this bishop doesn't get closed as this bishop is, and he also wants to make use of this bishop to just vacate itself somewhere, and also to try to remove this pawn from its way. That's a big important thing. Might be the next mission of Anand in this game would be that. Kasparov plays queen to c8, f takes, d takes, and now a5. Before reacting to anything else, it's very important to make this pawn safe, because if let's say you go by pawn grabbing, then rook would have taken on a4, and that won't have been pleasant. So first plays a5, also cements the pawn here and keeps defending the bishop on b6. That's very useful. So bishop comes to f8, defending the pawn like that. And now h3, that's a very good move, because it stops knight g4 and also gives king a little bit of a room to come to h2 in case something nasty happens at the back rank, even in the end games if something nasty happens at the back rank. So this flight square can become handy for white king. Kasparov plays queen to e6, desperately looking for some counterplay, and here in this position Anand plays a spectacular move. So take a pause and think what Anand played in this position. Well, if you found it out, that's brilliant, and if you just want to enjoy the show, rook d5, brilliant move indeed. Now I won't say it's a winning move, and I won't say it's the move that would bring the victory. As I said, not a winning move, or not the strongest move I would say, but it was strong enough that Kasparov was taken aback in this situation. The best move he could have played is rook to c8, and by saying rook to c8 I mean that any rook to c8, and that would have been better. I won't say better, but I would say white would still have the advantage, but at least black won't be losing that. That's for sure. But here Kasparov makes this terrible mistake. By the way, I should say that after the game it was asked that, were you daring Kasparov to take the rook? Then Anand said that he wasn't daring Kasparov to take the rook, he was begging him. If you put your rook on pre's, then yeah, it's more than begging rather than dare. And to Anand's surprise, and he said he was surprised and he was baffled that Kasparov did take that rook on d5, and which turned out to be a fatal mistake, because after e takes d5, suddenly the pawn storm on the queen side is looking tremendous, and if Anand gets rid of this pawn on b7, then things will be very ugly for Kasparov. No hopes after that. Queen to g6, c5. Now the pawn storm is rolling. e4, but bishop e2, great blocker. So this pawn is not running anywhere. I would say not going anywhere. Rook to e5, trying to generate some counterplay. And if you, let's say, play d6, well, that would be the great opportunity for Kasparov to equalize by taking here and exploiting this pin, and all the threats are basically diminished. But here Anand plays another amazing move. Take a pause and think what Anand played in this position. Well, if you found it out, that's awesome. And if you just want to enjoy the show, queen to d7, brilliant move indeed. Not a tough one to find. The basic intention is to protect all these squares here and also keep attacking the pawn on b7. Notice the queen also defends the pawn on d5, initiating pawn to d6, another idea in the position. And here there were two options. Kasparov could have played rook to e7, but after queen a4, let's say e3, the queen's line to the rook is open, but then rook to d1, just putting more protection here also. And you don't want to move c5 because then queen takes bishop, exploiting this pin. So you don't move c5, but you can move d6. Once queen gets off for this from this a rank, then you can even push this c5 pawn as well, and there would be absolutely no stopping for the pawn storm. Another move after queen d7 he can play is e3, but then again rook c1 would be devastating, threatening c6, pawn takes, and one of the pawns will shoot down the board and become a queen. But here Kasparov goes for activity, and he plays rook to g5. As it turns out, a big mistake, threatening something on g2, but Anand has had it covered. Rook to g1 and a pawn to e3. So he's desperately trying to make counterplay. He's trying to use all his resources as he can, but I'm afraid it's not enough. Maybe Anand could have taken on b7 straight away, but he plays pawn to d6. Kasparov plays rook to g3. Queen takes b7 and queen to e6. Now this is a very critical moment. If white goes for this piece grabbing, I'm afraid this will be a terrible news to white. After rook takes h3, check, g takes h3, queen takes h3 will be devastating checkmate. So after queen e6, what was the move that Anand played which forced an immediate resignation from Kasparov? If you found it out, that's amazing. And if you just want to enjoy the show, king h2 forced an immediate resignation from Kasparov, and here Anand went a game up after 9 games, but to the sadness of his fans and the Indian fans, he lost next 4 games out of 5, or I should say he lost 4 games out of next 5 games. He drew game 12, he lost game 10, and game 10 he lost. He would have lost anyway because his idea was very strong, and he lost in a dominating fashion. And in game 11 he made a terrible blunder, and in game 13 he was totally dominated, and in game 14 he blundered under time pressure. Well, and yeah, he wasn't able to win that, but this was his first ever World Chess Championship victory, and what a victory that was. So what's the point? What if black plays queen to e5? Well, you can take the rook, and there is no decent discover check by this rook. This rook can move here, you can move there, and move anywhere. This rook is threatening, and that will be that. But after king h2, he can play rook to e8, and this would have been a best move. And if you go for this, but then after queen e5 there is a perpetual, so you don't want that. But after rook e8 you don't have to take the rook on g3, you can simply play d7 and this rook is actually trapped. And if not trapped, it would have to give itself up for the queen. And if you, let's say, play this, then this rook is dropping, and otherwise it is promoting, and the bishop has also covered this d8 square. And it was very interesting. I forgot to mention that what a tremendous job this bishop also did by taking care of that d8 square. It didn't allow either of the rooks to take this open d file when it was available, and it was absolutely tremendous performance by Anand. But he wasn't able to win the championship, but as I said, it was a silver lining of Anand's, I would say, Anand's first ever World Chess Championship match. So I hope you liked my video. I hope you liked my analysis. Thanks for watching. Tomorrow I will be bringing the game at number 6. Stay safe. Cheers. Bye.